All right, I want to turn to Hack Madness. Michael Duncan, can you explain what Hack Madness is?
Yeah, it's a seeded bracket similar to March Madness, but it contains all of the worst liberal hack journalists across the country. We have two play-in games and then a full 64 team bracket that are, seeded 1 through 16. A lot of familiar names on that list, whether that's Rachel Maddow or Stephanie Rule or Jen Psaki or all of these sorts of people. But it's a mixture of like media personalities, commentators, hosts, print journalists, and whatnot. And yeah, we have a very extensive and proprietary methodology for this sort of thing that takes into account many factors, sort of similar to like in college football, the Ken Palm. Like the Ken Palm is a methodology for ranking basketball teams. We do that with liberal journalists. And it's a mixture of things. It's like, are you crazy? You have a quotient of crazy. You have a quotient of like how liberal you are, how much of a liar you are. What's your visibility? Are you on like cable every single night? Or like, do you have a weekly column? And all of those factor into how you end up getting seeded in the tournament.
All right. So John Ashbrook, how do you play? How does one play?
So Comfortably Smug at his Twitter account posts the opportunity to vote basically every single day, starting yesterday with the play-in games and then continuing on over the next couple of weeks. Every day is another round. And, we've done it for 5 years. And the past champions may not surprise you. It's been luminaries like Brian Stelter, people like Jen Rubin, who have shown a real affinity for just a desire to win. This year, I'll tell you, my favorite is Margaret Brennan. I really think that she's come to play this season. She is a champion like we've never seen before, and she's going to give everybody a run for their money.
Honestly, the last several weeks, she came on late, I think partly because, earlier in the season, she was playing the Biden teams, and it was very different. You didn't see how hard she was working to make a fool of herself until the election happened, and it's been spectacular. I do wonder, in the back of my mind, do you think that there's a competition among Trump cabinet members to appear on Face the Nation just to embarrass her?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Donald Trump knows a lot about politics. The number one thing he knows the most about is the importance of a good moment on television. And so the ability of all of these people to go on TV and just dress down some liberal hack journalist is like just fantastic content. And it bangs around on the internet, on X all day and all of these platforms. More people watch them get embarrassed on social media than actually watch the shows themselves.
I got to be honest with you. I know this is a question that I'm sure you are ready for, and a lot of America is asking. In light of what's occurred in the last 24 hours, do either of you regret that Jeffrey Goldberg is not in the field of 64?
Yeah, he should have been in the field without question.
I mean, will you be making any kind of public apology to America?
I think we should blame one person and one person alone, and that is Comfortably Smug.
Yeah. Well, I think for obvious reasons. That goes back to the selection committee. Is this going to require some kind of future review of how people are chosen? Because honestly, he might not have been as spectacular, as embarrassing as he has the last 24 hours. But I think that Jeffrey Goldberg's work in the last year has been rather consistent.
Yeah, well, I mean, like if you make a late run in a conference tournament, but you have, a 50-50 record, you're still going to be on the bubble. It's the way that it is. Unfortunately for like my team, the Indiana Hoosiers, you end up on the outside looking in. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Right.
Speaking of that, when I looked at this year's NCAA March Madness bracket, I got to be honest with you. I mean, I looked and I said, who is McNeese? Right? Who is McNeese? I similarly looked, and now I know who Josh Bork is of the AP because he embarrassed himself when he tried to school Caroline on what a tariff was. But I looked, and there's a couple other names like Peter Jamison that, frankly, I just don't think is a household name. How does that?
So it's not a household name, but I think that's one of the great things about the tournament is you get these smaller schools, not even mid-majors, who are coming in there and they played hard all season. If you look back at some of the headlines that he's written over the past few years, there's a body of work that allows a school that small to make it to the tournament. Now, What you will not see in our tournament is a guarantee that you come back. Like Jen Rubin, for example, not in the tournament. Past champion, she didn't make it this year. So there are some new people who you maybe haven't heard of, but if they have a chance, just like everybody else, to state their case, and maybe they surprise people.
Well, and you got to pick teams from every conference at some level, right? And so we've got TV personalities, we have print journalists, we have sort of opinion columnists, folks. And then you've got people who are like national political reporters or White House correspondents. And so, in piecing together the bracket, like you want to look at folks from all of those walks of life in political journalism and select some people from all of it so you get a little bit of variety in there. After all, it is a variety program.
That's true. That's a good point. I think the thing that's interesting to me is it's not just who made it, but it's also the folks who didn't make it. And as I look down, I don't see anyone from Axios. Kristen Welker, I don't know how she doesn't make the show. Alex Eisenstadt, how does he not make? I mean, there were some, I got to be honest with you, I looked down the list and I had to shake my head saying, what was it in their season that didn't allow them to make it? Was it just that they were on the bubble, that they didn't play in a good conference? How do those kind of reporters not make the list?
Well, I think it's less about what they didn't do to make it and more about what the other players did do to make it this year. Kristen Welker has been in the bracket in past years, but she didn't put together the kind of a season that like a Margaret Brennan and a Cole Wallace and Nora O'Donnell. They have played so hard. These are multi-tool talents who have played so hard all year that the committee is mostly focused on what have you done for me lately.
But then you guys set up some interest. I love, because it's not just the people. It's like it is in the March Madness bracket, right? The rankings matter because you'll take somebody less known and put them up against a number one seed.
Right.
But then there were some angles that I thought were fascinating. Maybe it's just inside baseball, but you guys put Peter Baker and Susan Glazier up against each other. And Susan they're married. Right. And I got to think behind the scenes, like, does Peter sort of let people know, hey, go take Susan down, take her down, take her down? Or is she out there trying to get her people? Like, I wouldn't want to lose that battle with my wife. It's
a house divided. And frankly, it's the one I'm most looking forward to in the first round. And I don't know. I think I give Peter the edge. Yeah. I mean, her takes are pretty wild. They both still do this Russiagate thing, which is crazy to me. So it's interesting. I think it's my number one pick for watch this closely.
You take Peter, I'm taking Susan.
Okay.
I really think her Twitter game has been so strong over the past few months in particular.
I think Peter wins on name ID.
Might be right.
So let me ask you guys, as sort of like PR guys that have been around the town for a while, in all seriousness, when you put someone like that or anyone else on that list and you're calling them a hack, I mean, it's hack madness. Do they reach out and say, hey, John, Michael, we've known each other for a while. Like, what's going on here?
You might be surprised, Sean. Some of them actually like it. And I don't know if that gives away their politics or it just gives away that they want to be mentioned. My guess is any publicity is good publicity when you're in the publicity business. And so I think it's a mark of relevance, and it's a recognition. It's really an award to be in that bracket. And so I think many of them are thankful that they can be a part of it.
The only way to earn a permanent at-large bid in Hack Madness is to DM us complaining about that they're included in Hack Madness.
So give me a ballpark. Like, is that 5 people that do that?
We get 5 to 10, I would say, every year who come at us in the DMs complaining. Yeah.
One of the things that I don't think people appreciate enough, and I'm trying to think of a couple, like Jake Tapper, for instance. He probably is the thinnest skinned individual that I know. Like, if you spell his name wrong, 1P, not whatever, he'll DM you and say, you spelled my name. I mean, he is one of the thinnest skinned individuals. And I wonder, like, is that something that you guys realize, like how many of these people that you thought might have a sense of humor? I get your point about this, Michael, like that they might, some of them think it's a badge of honor, but I got to think a lot of them don't like it.
No, a lot of them don't. But they know, like, actually coming at us or publicly tweeting about it only draws more attention to it. It's sort of the Streisand
But does
effect.
it affect you guys, like, on a personal level? Like, is it something like, hey, you used to get invited to our party, you're no longer invited?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, I don't want to go to their party anyway.
That's
but
right.
To be honest with you, I think it's just, it's just DC.
Well, you guys also on the show regularly, not just in March, but do this thing, journo or lib, where you'll play some clips and then try to guess. Is this something that, like, in all honesty, like I've been thinking about this, that like, is this been an evolution where they feel more free in this environment to say things that they might not have said 10 years ago, even though they might have felt it? I get the sense that a lot of these guys don't care as much, that they're like, yeah, I support the left agenda and I'm not going to be embarrassed about it.
Yeah, there has. I mean, Sean, you've worked in this industry for a very long time, and you've noticed the trend from a left of center media to something that is just rooting on one side. And it's honestly, I think it really hurts Democrats because they get easy press. Democrats aren't the ones who are carrying their message. It's the mainstream media carrying the message for them. And there has been an absolute evolution from the early 2000s to today. And without question, there are more journalists out there on Twitter building their own brands toward the left because that's where their natural proclivities lie. And it's therapeutic to be able to push back in some way, like we've been told for even when they were a little bit more fair 15 years ago, they were only putting the Republican quote in like the 8th paragraph of the story. Everything was framed under what Democrats wanted anyway. And now that they just completely blow off anything a Republican says or say that that the Republican is lying in their pushback, it's something that is like, this is our chance to lodge complaints.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the age of Donald Trump, reporters who wanted to write a straight news article would just be inundated by the left. How could you do this? If you write an objective news piece, all you're doing is you're normalizing Donald Trump, I mean, so like they've sort of let the mask slip because it's what a lot of their far left audience wants them to do. I just love that we have this show now that we can ridicule and mock them for doing it.
What do you guys think about the changes that this administration under Caroline Leavitt have made to the briefing room?
I think they're fantastic. And I by the way, I don't think they're done yet. The way people consume information in this country has also changed dramatically. And it's probably due in part to the rise in social media and the rise in the way people are getting their information elsewhere anyway. But people are also tired of being lectured at. They open a newspaper to try to get information. They open the newspaper to figure out what's going on in the world, and instead they get a sermon from some left winger, and they don't want that. They want information, and if you're presenting information with a bias that's propaganda, the Ruthless Variety program, we have a right of center point of view. We're not afraid to say that, and people appreciate it. They know that the information they're receiving with some humor is coming from a certain point of view, and yet these mainstream media outlets still continue to try to dupe people into believing that it's unbiased. I mean, you just watch the CBS Evening News on a daily basis, and it is left-wing propaganda. It's unbelievable to me that they continue to do this. But I'm telling you, Sean, the way that people are consuming information is completely different. This White House is so smart by adding in more new media, adding in more voices, people with big Twitter accounts, people with big audiences, because they are carrying a message to an audience and they're trying to deliver a message to that audience. You remember at the very beginning of our careers in Washington, new media was an afterthought. It was, oh, this is some guy who's sitting in the corner of the room. He read a couple of blogs. He's summarizing them for the boss. Today, new media is leading the charge in the conversation. And it's like Elon Musk says, we are the media now.
Yeah, and if you look at the campaign, I mean, the campaign embraced that strategy and it brought him back to the White House. So I'm not surprised they're doing this in the White House Correspondents' Room because, I mean, if you want to get out the message that elected the guy, you got to go to a lot of sources, a variety of voices that allow you to get that message out.
John Ashbrook, you sat in that new media seat. On a personal level, like, first of all, I just want to know, like, was that like a fight between you guys, or were you like, hey, I gotta go do something, I'll be right back?
No, so the backstory there is I filled out the form when the White House put out that form being like, we're we want new media in this seat. And I got a response. I mean, they were very responsive and they offered me the seat, and I was leaving in the morning to attend one of my buddies' a wedding. So I was going to be out of town. So I offered it to John Ashbrook because I'm just a gracious friend.
So did you comfortably smug or Josh Holmes say, excuse me, we didn't, how did we fall down the pecking order?
Well, no, I think they were all trying.
Or was Ashbrook just there?
Yeah, he was there, and everyone was traveling because it was like a Friday deal, and I knew Ashbrook was going to be there, and he did a great job. But I would have never offered to him if I knew how big it would make his head.
Well, honestly, though, the funny thing is, John, like was that? I mean, how did that just change? I mean, I assumed. I mean, the attention that I thought you guys got was huge, not just to the show, but you personally. How did that make you? What was that like?
I'll tell you what, Sean, I don't take vacation days because our audience is important to me. You know, our country is important to me. And so a Friday is a work day for most people. And so I came into work. They were very gracious to let me go in and ask a question. And I'll tell you, it was so satisfying, Sean, when you think about something for so long and then you finally get that moment, you're going to jump on it. And the question that we asked was about the border and whether the media is out of touch by the way that they're covering the border. You should have seen the eye rolls. I mean, you have seen the eye rolls. You know the reaction that I got, and they waited. So they didn't announce that it was going to be me until I walked out into the room. And so like 2 minutes before Caroline walks out, I walk out and like just gasps. You know, they were like, oh, I'm sure it's going to be a conservative, but I mean, get out of here. So like it was such a great moment. And it was just one of those things that you just get so hyped up for in the lead up that it happens in the blink of an eye. And I think we're going to be back there at some point, you know, asking another question. But
that's pretty selfish. I got to be honest. I mean, you guys getting a second bite at the apple. Caroline tells me there's like 14,000 people and you guys are already trying to go back to the table for seconds.
Well, I don't know that we'll be back in that chair anytime soon because there are so many others that are very, very deserving. And there are so many others with giant audiences. But there are a bunch of conservative reporters from different types of media outlets that come in, as you know, Sean, that come in and stand on the side every day and try to get in a question. And I think that we'll be working towards something like that.
All right, Michael Duncan, if Caroline called you and said, hey, you had to give up your opportunity to Mr. Ashbrook there, I would love to get your take on like what else we could be doing. What would you tell her are additional things that they could do to bring in more voices or enhance the experience?
I would do more like traveling pool reporting from podcasts like ours. I think what Trump did, you know, showing up at the NCAA, wrestling tournament was amazing. And I would have loved, as somebody who grew up wrestling, I would have loved to been in that room with Donald Trump. I would say more stuff like that, away from like the stodginess of DC and the briefing room, like getting some of these voices with Trump on the road at events and things like that, I think would be a triumph.
But that's what he just said is a really good point, because the person doing the pull should be the most motivated to pull the most color out of any moment. And like at a wrestling event where Michael has a lot of understanding of how something like that works and a lot of appreciation for the entertaining quality that the president brings to every single room, he could deliver a real service, not just to a broader audiences, but basically to every single media outlet. And I don't know, Sean, if you saw this, but the guy SV Date,
I heard your discussion with Caroline on the program, and dude, it was, I mean, seriously, I laughed so hard. You guys played the clip the other day again when he got to travel to the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, his pool reports were the worst thing. I mean, you're going to the Super Bowl with the president of the United States and you're delivering a 2-sentence report that's basically like president arrived at Super Bowl. I mean, we already got the calendar. We already knew what was happening, but here you have the most entertaining figure on the face of the earth and you can't pull more color out of who he's interacting with, what somebody said to him, what he said back. It doesn't all have to be glowing, by the way. It can, but it can be interesting. And I just think that moment was absolutely blown.
Well, and just to remind the audience, the pool reporter's job it's like a play-by-play or a color analyst on a football game, right? It's to give you a sense of what's really happening. So the pool reporter because there's only one individual is saying, hey, the president walked onto the field. He's wearing a top coat with a red tie. Two individuals walked up to him and handed him a coin, and he did this. Like, it gives you the sense of like what's going on the field or in the event. And that's the thing that I agree that they don't want to share that, because it's almost like, I know I hate this term. I hate it. But the left likes to say we don't want to humanize him.
Right.
And I just, to me, as if like you're a robot. We got to humanize this individual. It's horrible. I mean, there are people that need to be humanized, like Jim Acosta, and they need to be humanized.
But they're missing an opportunity to make news. Like if you watch that wrestling tournament, you had player after player, wrestler after wrestler coming up to Donald Trump, give him a high five, give him a hug, taking pictures with him. It was like great color. And like you miss an opportunity to inform your readers. If you want to regain the trust of the American people, like the pool report and the reporting from those folks has to reflect the stuff they're seeing on social media. And they're seeing like Donald Trump high-fiving all these kids and everyone's all excited. And then the pool report is like Donald Trump attended this event.
So if you were there, Michael Duncan, would you have been able to like give us some sense of the moves? Like Trump just shook hands with the guy who at the third in the final minute took his arm and twist. I mean, like give us some real wrestling insight.
Yeah, like a last second ankle pick that became a double leg takedown.
Already, I'm hooked. Already, yeah. I feel like I was there now.
Well, I mean, in the heavyweight division, a former world champion who came back to wrestle an additional year lost to this kid from Oklahoma State in the final 10 seconds. He was winning 3-2 and lost. I mean, it was electric.
Now I feel like I got shortchanged on what really happened at that wrestling championship.
Yeah.
Had you been there. Do you guys, I mean, the thing that's interesting is the White House Correspondents Association, you guys brought this up, right? They generally have controlled the room, set the rules for everything, where everyone sits, how the protocols exist in terms of the pool, et cetera. They've dismantled this, but I don't think enough credit has gone to Eugene Daniels, formerly of Politico, now of MSNBC, for his lack of leadership. The downfall of the White House Correspondents Association is truly on his shoulders, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that.
Well, he did get a number 1 seed in our Hack Madness tournament, and I think he's going to go late. Well
deserved.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. There is no reason why the White House Correspondents Association could not have adapted to the times,
right,
just like everybody else in this country.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, like they failed. They were like taxi cabs when Uber was coming up. They sat there, dug in their heels, and now it's blown up. I want to ask you, you brought up, John, the going to their parties. I have admitted I am a convert. I used to love it. It was fun, not love it, but I would always, I'd love to get invited. I admit it. But I've come to realize that we as Republicans can no longer be props in going to their parties, including the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I get it. Everybody wants to get that selfie with D-list celebrities like Billy Eichner and post them on Instagram. But we are part of the problem if we go to the dinners. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I haven't been to one of those dinners in a very long time. I mean, I think maybe it's been over 10 years since I've been to one of those. And if you want to meet celebrities, what I suggest, Sean, is that you start doing your Christmas party again. You've had Belding, you had Screech, that was
Mr. Ron Bonjean, actually.
But didn't you? What didn't you do that with Ron?
No, well, I took credit for a lot of things. It was, I mean, as you guys know, most of my career is me taking credit for things that other people actually did. I just happened to live near Ron, and so I would go on to his party and kind of greet people as they came in as if it were my party.
What a great move.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, just, it's sort of like that Seinfeld episode of taking credit for the big salad. I didn't actually do anything. But I agree. There's talk in the story today, Michael, about Republicans counter-programming the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which I think is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, like if you have to have a social obligation for work, at the very least, just like surround yourself with people you enjoy being around. Mm-hmm. Why put yourself through the torture of having to sit there as a bunch of people insult you in your line of work? I mean, like I would never voluntarily sign up for something like that unless I was getting hazard pay. Should
we call them out? If Republicans go, I feel like at some point you've been warned. you now can't, your card to criticize the media is pulled if you want to go hang out with them.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, Sean. I really do. And I think that a lot of people on our side have come to a similar conclusion here. And my guess is that fewer Republicans will attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner this year than ever have before.
There's a story out this morning that Chris LaCivita was the co-campaign manager of Donald Trump's successful campaign, is doubling down in his defamation lawsuit against the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast wrote a story claiming that he was making this exorbitant amount of money. LaCivita and his team basically sent the receipts to the Daily Beast and said, we can show you demonstrably what I made and what went to advertising, because basically my company was a pass-through for a lot of advertising. The Daily Beast said, we'll modify it a little, but we're going to stand by its story. The media would have us believe that sort of holding the media accountable is attacking them. And I think that this is sort of the fascinating dynamic that exists now, where if we call them out on false stories, misinformation, etc., we are undermining democracy. We are attacking the Constitution, going after a free press. I feel like I actually am just proud that we're standing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, you know something's going right for the Trump campaign when they start attacking a strategist that works on the campaign. I mean, like political media, when they can't figure out how to defeat a Republican, they start attacking the campaign to try to find a chink in the armor. They want to make the campaign fight itself, right? It's their only way of defeating a Republican who's set to win an election. But it's incredible that they doubled down on it. I think it's incredible that they would think that was so newsworthy that they wouldn't change, the substance of the story, given that there was all that pushback from LaCivita. I hope he's successful, because there has to be a line in political journalism that you don't cross. And I think accusing somebody of basically stealing money when they can prove they didn't is a line we should enforce.
Yes, especially, like you say, especially if they went back to the publication and provided information proving that the story is inaccurate, and the publication is like, nope, sorry, we're running it. And it just exposes their motivation toward partisan action, and it's not the truth. You know what I mean? Like it really exposes what these media companies are all about, and that's helping Democrats and shitting on Republicans.
Thank you. I want to ask you one last question. I get asked this in a variety of different ways all the time about my experience, but we are basically three longtime staffers that now kind of have a more public-facing role. So I'll ask you a question that I get asked a lot. Who is the coolest person that you guys have met and interviewed with on the Ruthless Variety program? Like, who to you, and it may not be someone that is like the coolest, like they're the biggest celebrity, but somebody who you met and you went, wow, I was really impressed with that person or that candidate.
JD Vance.
I got to say, guys, when you did that fishing thing, there's very few things I get jealous of. And I was like, that was a cool, I'm still amazed. How did you get JD Vance to go fishing with you guys in the middle of a campaign?
Ashbrook's got it.
Yeah, we told him it was Sean Spicer's idea. And it was as simple as that.
I know JD, he would be like, I'm not getting in a boat with that guy.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, we know a couple of the guys who work with him, and texted him, and he was actually sitting right there with JD at the time, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do a fishing thing in Michigan?" And JD was like, "Hell yeah." So awesome. It didn't take much convincing. It did take a little bit of work behind the scenes, with the campaign apparatus and the advance team and everybody else. And I mean, if you would have seen the armada of protection surrounding these fishing boats in Michigan, you would have known that, man, there was a lot that went into it. But of course, this was just in the weeks right after the assassins have tried to take President Trump's life twice. And I think that JD Vance, I would say the same thing. Another really cool interview we did that didn't break the numbers. It didn't it was just cool to me. Was we actually had Bob Dole's last interview that he ever did, and we went over to the Watergate, and he was there on a machine that was helping him breathe at the time, but he still had personality. I mean, he physically was very degraded. I mean, this was maybe a month before he died, so you could tell physically he was not in great shape. But his sense of humor was right there, right under the surface. It didn't take much to pull it out of him. Got a lot of smiles, and it was a really cool experience.
That's awesome
for us.
Gentlemen, I want to thank the winners of the Ruthless Variety Program Madness Sean Spicer bracket. You will find out who advances to the finals later in the week. One of you will win. One of you will just be runner-up. But I appreciate you participating today. Thanks for being with us. Always great to have you. Guys, remember tomorrow, Ron Johnson, Senator from Wisconsin, joins us. On Friday, our good friend Seb Gorka will be with us as well. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to sign up at SeanSpicer.com for the weekly newsletter. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.